It was a corner that was pretty dangerous. It was a Latin King corner, and a lot of the guys that I knew, they were entering into that gang and the Latin Kings, and there's a lot of stories and history with that in my neighborhood. And it just so happens that that intersection was between my house and the church, and so I often walked down that intersection. And one night in summer, I was walking to church to go play ball, and my father was like, yo, I'll take you in the car. And I just remember being so full of pride and being like, Pops, in my mind, I was like, I don't need you. You know how 15-year-olds are. And so as I kept arguing with him and I argued with my Pops, I was finally like, okay, cool, let me jump in the car. And so I got into the van and we turned around, and the place I would have been, basically 5 rival gangbangers came up and they shot one of my acquaintances. 2 shots in the back, 1 in the head. And in front of that M&D liquor store, one of my acquaintances died right there that night. And I remember we circled the block, in the very place I would have been. We went past and there was all this commotion. I got to the church, to the little gym that we were at, and I started hearing guys saying, man, did you hear so-and-so got shot? Did you hear so-and-so got shot? Did you hear who shot him? That night, my father picked me up and he walked me up to that very corner that just about 3 to 4 hours earlier, my acquaintance got shot. 17-year-old was dead right there. And obviously his body wasn't there anymore. But as we walked up to that corner, my father didn't say anything to me. My father he still is. He's just this humble, beautiful man that loved the neighborhood and loved his son and knew that I was warring inside of my soul with who I would serve with my life and who I would give my soul to. And he took me to this corner, and there was about 40 to 50 Latin Kings, and they were doing something called a vigilia. They had all these candles out and there was still blood on the ground. And I remember, because he didn't say one word to me, and he just had me look down. And my father was basically showing me, man, this is a vacant life. This is what God is trying to save you from. Not only a vacant life here, but hell in eternity. And it was during that season of my life, starting that night, that the Lord started to waken me up that I needed to come to know him. And I remember I went home to my bedroom by myself, and I fell on my knees. Not to be dramatic, but that's just what happened. I was so overwhelmed by the sin of my heart. I was so overwhelmed by the dark desires that I knew separated me from God. It wasn't just the fear of that it could have been me that night that got shot in the head, in the back, and my life could have been over, and I would have had to give an account to God. It was also just that I was wasting my life now. And as a teenager, as 15 years old, I started to realize I needed Jesus not only to be my Savior, but the Lord of my life. Because I was starting to just progressively walk more and more into darkness. Darkness inside and darkness in the world. I was serving an unknown God, which was really at that point was myself. I just wanted to do me, live my life. I didn't care really that my father was a pastor, that I had a great church that I was going to. The desires of my heart were dark. And so in that room, the Lord showed me during prayer, just a mirror that reflected what was in my heart. And I just cried out. It was that moment that this word, the gospel, the good news of Jesus, that he came for me and I didn't have to walk in darkness anymore. It was that moment when I came alive. It's interesting because in Acts 17, when Paul is talking to all these Greek philosophers trying to feel their way toward God, they got all these altars everywhere. And they got even an altar that says to the unknown God. And when I read about this, I think about my intersection right there in Chicago on the northeast side. And it reminds me because Paul was at an intersection here, and he says this in verse 27 of Acts 17, God's purpose was for the nations to seek after God and perhaps feel their way toward him and find him, though he is not far off from any one of us. Although he is not far off from any one of us. I found at 15 that Christ was not far away from my circumstance. I found this supernatural interaction with him when I believed in him, that by faith he made me alive. Because I finally believed that the cross was for me, as well as when he rose again from the grave, that life was for me. And that's my testimony, but perhaps sometimes you feel like God is far off from you. Perhaps sometimes you feel like even in the circumstances right now, you're like, God is not close to me because everything is going wrong. Well, I would ask you this. Sometimes we need to have a wake-up call to show us that our heart is wrong and the world is wrong. The world is wrong. We're just like these Greek philosophers. We're just like the gangbangers in Chicago. We're just like all of us trying to feel our way to finding our Creator, to finding a God that loved us deeply. And the fact is, God is not far from us. Jesus came to our intersection. Jesus comes to our broken circumstances. Jesus comes to our dead hearts. Jesus comes to our darkness. And he gives you the most incredible, he gives us the most incredible offer. I can give you new life. Do you want it? If you do, then believe. God has come to our intersection. He's not only come to our intersection, he wants to live inside of us through his Spirit and make us new men, new women, new young man, new young woman, new kid, whoever's listening. He wants to take your heart and make it new. He wants to take your spirit and make it new. So he's come to your intersection. Would you receive him?